Race and Inequality in TNT, an opinion by former PNM Vice Chairman Robert LeHunte. In a recent statement made by the opposition leader, in an attempt to ascribe factors motivating the charges being brought against her deputy political leader, she made an important observation, and I quote, "Communities that support PNM have the highest crime rate, worst infrastructure, and the lowest opportunities." This statement by itself acknowledges the fact that the PNM, which has been in political power for the majority of our country's post-independence, and the party supported by the majority of the black community, does not consider discriminatory racial factors in the allocation of the country's resources. The question that should be asked, therefore, is whether the reality acknowledged by her above is, in fact, the genesis of the problem, or at very least, a major contributing factor. Rather than focusing on the racial component of her statement, should we not be focused on the fact that in large areas of our society, most of which are occupied by people of African descent, the level of development has been substandard? This identified reality manifests itself in a number of ways. The primary schools in which students are scoring less than 30% in the SEA are primarily the African areas. The majority of prisoners in our jails are primarily African descent. The areas in which children are leaving school and going home unattended and unsupervised are the East-West corridor communities. The dropout rate in secondary school is highest in African community. The majority, the business community, is made of people of non-African descent, and the list goes on. In a country where we pride ourselves in the phrase, "Every creed and race find an equal place," how did we get here? More importantly, how are we planning to get out of here so that we can all live in and enjoy this country? The obvious, uninformed, knee-jerk reaction would be simply to ascribe the existing situation to views such as black people cannot do business, black people are lazy, opportunities are created, and black people do not know how to take advantage of them. This approach is simplistic and myopic at best. The reality is, however, that 35% of our country is made up of people of African descent, and for overall productivity in the country to improve, all aspects of the country must be firing on all cylinders. Having recognized the problem, therefore, we must go above simplistic, uninformed reasoning and attempt to treat with the issue more clinically. I recently became exposed to an approach taken by Malaysia when that country recognized that its Indian community, which, like Trinidad and Tobago, represented 33% of the population, was underperforming. In that society, similar to Trinidad and Tobago, some members of the Indian community were doing very well. However, from an overall perspective, the community was underperforming compared to other communities and was a major contributor to crime. In developing a solution, the government recognized that this was not an Indian people's problem. It was a national problem, and therefore it required a national approach. It is therefore clear that a similar approach needs to be taken and articulated by any political party attempting to have the privilege of ruling our multiracial society. This is definitely not about race, but it is about recognizing that as a country we have a problem. We must remove our heads from the sand, and instead of playing the blame game, let's all try to be nationalistic and deal with the issue. I would like to see all parties articulate concrete plans on how they are going to reduce the number of children in our primary school system who are scoring below 30% in the SEA. While focus should be placed on the national movement, we need to be specific in particular areas that we know are doing badly. Similarly, measurable targets should be set and programs identified in all areas that will result in the level of inequality in the society improving. That level of inequality and the lack of opportunities are at the center of the crime problems facing our country. We need to be laser focused on providing meaningful solutions and not allow our politicians to play football with this critical issue.